I spent 3 hours last night looking for a senior discount on my flight to Orlando. Everyone says they exist, but there is literally no button for it on the airline websites. Did they just quietly get rid of them?
They absolute did not get rid of them. But airlines deliberately removed the senior discount button from their online booking portals. They run on complex dynamic pricing models, and letting someone click a box for a flat 10% off ruins their revenue algorithms.
So if it is not on the website, how are you actually supposed to get it?
You have to call the reservation line directly. Pick up the phone and use this exact phrasing. Can you please check for a senior fare for a passenger over 65 on this route? The agent's software has access to specific fare classes that the public internet cannot see. But always compare it to the web price before hanging up, because sometimes general internet flash sales are actually cheaper than the locked senior block. But that is just money. What happens when the airport itself is physically overwhelming?
The noise, the yelling to take off your shoes, people bumping into your walker. Honestly, the security checkpoint is why my parents refuse to fly at all anymore. It is just too stressful.
That is exactly why the TSA Cares helpline exists, but they do a terrible job of advertising it. It is a completely free, federally funded service for travelers with disabilities, medical conditions, or even just severe anxiety. You get a specialized passenger support specialist.
Wait, a personal escort? Do I have to pay for that or bring a stack of doctor notes?
No forms, no doctor notes, zero cost. You just call 855-778-7227 at least 72 hours before your flight. Tell them you use a walker or have a pacemaker or just suffer from extreme confusion in crowds. They will meet you and guide you completely through the screening process. But getting through security is useless if the airline randomly changes your seat at the gate.
Oh, do not get me started. Last month, I paid extra for an aisle seat because of my knee pain, and the airline randomly moved me to a middle seat in the back. The gate agent just shrugged and said it was an equipment change.
This is where you bring up the Air Carrier Access Act. Never frame your seating request as a preference. Frame it as a medical necessity. If you have mobility issues or take medication that requires frequent restroom access, you have federally guarded rights.
So what are the exact words I need to say to make them listen?
You tell them, I require an aisle seat due to a medical condition that requires frequent access to the restroom. Or, I require a bulkhead seat as a disability accommodation. Airlines hold back a block of seats specifically for gate control. When you speak to the gate agent early and invoke a medical need, they must prioritize you on that hidden seat map. But wait until you hear how you can get your own family to act as your muscle.
I hate saying goodbye to my daughter at the giant check-in counters. I always get lost trying to find my gate by myself. And they do not let non-passengers through security since the 9/11 changes.
That is a massive misconception. If you need physical, cognitive, or sensory assistance, you have a federally guaranteed right to a meet and assist service. Better yet, you can request an escort pass for your daughter.
Stop. My daughter can come all the way to the boarding gate with me without a ticket?
Yes. She goes to the check-in desk with her government ID and says, I am providing necessary assistance to this passenger, and I request an escort pass to the gate. The airline prints a pass that functions just like a boarding pass for the TSA checkpoint. She can stay with you until you are physically on the plane. And speaking of things on the plane, the way airlines charge for baggage is legally restricted when it comes to older travelers.
My husband has a CPAP machine, and I have a folding walker. Between the carry-on limits and the checked bag fees, we are paying an extra $100 each way just to stay alive and mobile.
You should never pay a single cent for that. Under Department of Transportation rules, assistive devices and medical equipment fly for absolutely free. Check them or carry them on. They do not count toward your baggage allowance. Period.
But if I fight the ticket agent on this, will they force me to open my bags and prove my medical history in front of the whole line?
Absolutely not. Tell the agent, I am checking medical equipment that is exempt from baggage fees. By law, you are not required to disclose your specific medical condition. They are only allowed to visually inspect the equipment to ensure personal clothes aren't packed with it. But check-in is just the first hurdle. Let us talk about a rule specifically for those over 75.
Last year, they made my 80-year-old mother take off her shoes. And then she set off the metal detector because of her knee replacement. They made her stand with her arms spread for 5 minutes for a pat-down. She was crying by the end.
That should never have happened. Travelers 75 and older are entitled to modified screening. They are legally allowed to keep their shoes and light jackets on. If they have a joint replacement that sets off an alarm, they do not have to endure a painful standing pat-down.
So what should she have done when the machine beeped?
She simply requests a chair. The TSA officer must provide seating and conduct the secondary screening while the passenger is comfortably seated. Do not accept physical distress as part of the process. Which brings us to the most manipulated moment in air travel: boarding.
They always announce pre-boarding for people needing extra time, but half the time, the gate agent looks me up and down, decides I do not look disabled enough, and tells me to wait for Group 4.
Gate agents are not doctors, and the law strictly forbids them from playing doctor. Anyone who self-identifies as needing extra time due to a disability, which legally includes severe balance issues or slow mobility, is entitled to board before all other groups.
Okay, but what if they actually tell me no? Arguing with a gate agent feels like a fast track to getting thrown off the flight.
You do not argue. You ask one simple legal question. Is this an accommodation you can honor under the Air Carrier Access Act? The moment you name drop that specific act, their entire demeanor will change, because violating it incurs massive federal fines, and you will need that legal high ground when the flight gets canceled entirely.
When a storm hits and flights are canceled, it is like the Hunger Games. Just hundreds of passengers sprinting to the customer service desk. If you cannot run fast, you are stuck sleeping on the floor for 2 days.
Not if you pre-registered. Remember what we talked about earlier regarding special assistance? If you registered your medical or mobility needs in advance, your passenger record is flagged in the airline system. When chaos hits, you should not be treated like a general ticket holder.
Does that mean I actually get to skip the rebooking line?
You approach the desk and explicitly identify yourself as a passenger with pre-registered medical needs. State clearly that the cancellation is causing significant physical hardship. Airlines quietly prioritize vulnerable passengers for hotel vouchers and the next available seats to avoid medical emergencies in their terminals. But what happens if the plane is just trapped on the runway?
My worst nightmare. Trapped in a metal tube on the asphalt for hours, with the pilot saying, "Just 15 more minutes," while the air conditioning stops working and I have to take my medication with no water.
The Department of Transportation enforces strict Tarmac delay laws. The airline does not own you. After exactly 2 hours of being delayed on the tarmac, the airline is legally required to provide food, water, and functional toilets.
2 hours? But flight attendants always tell everyone to stay in their seats and that service is suspended.
Hit the call button. When they arrive, state, "We have hit the 2-hour legal mark and I have medical requirements for water." Furthermore, after 3 hours on a domestic flight or 4 hours internationally, they must give you the option to physically deplane. But if they absolutely refuse to follow any of these rules we've discussed today, you have one final nuclear option.
This is my fear with all this advice. What if the airline employee is having a terrible day, completely disregards the law, and tells me to shut up and sit down?
You use the ultimate trump card. Federal law mandates that every single airline at every single airport must have a complaint resolution official, or CRO, immediately available. They are specially trained in disability regulations and have the authority to overrule gate agents, baggage handlers, and even flight attendants.
So I just demand a manager?
Never ask for a manager. A manager protects the airline. A CRO protects the law. Look the employee in the eye and say, "You are denying me a reasonable accommodation under the Air Carrier Access Act. I demand to speak to a complaint resolution official immediately." If they still fail you, do not complain to the airline later. Go directly to the Department of Transportation website and file a formal federal complaint. The DOT tracks these and hits airlines with massive fines for non-compliance.